Welcome, everybody. This is the Thursday, July 24th, 2025 meeting of the Somerville Fair Housing Commission. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, this meeting of the Somerville Fair Housing Commission will be conducted via remote participation. We will have an audio recording available upon request as soon as possible after the meeting. So welcome to anybody who's joining us either now or viewing this later. Let me just ask consent from the other commissioners to call the meeting to order.
Sure.
Aye.
The meeting is in order. Our first item is the review of the draft minutes from our last meeting, June 26, 2025.
May I please have 5 minutes to review? I only got halfway through it earlier today.
Okay, well, we will pause while that's happening, and maybe some of the other commissioners will be able to join us in the meantime.
Yeah, I have to say I didn't read them either. So let me find them. I'm a bad.
Oh, I did read them, and one thing I wanted to note is that in item number 5, where it talks about the questionnaire, which will be we'll be updating that item later in this meeting, but the notes here say they talk about the at-large city council seats, and that's correct, but I'd like the minutes to reflect that we're also sending questionnaires to the mayoral candidates and the ward councilor candidates.
Okay, I'll add that.
And just in case anybody out there is wondering, we are not quizzing the school committee candidates because that's too far removed from the fair housing issues.
Although, Dennis, I'm thinking that there's some type of a connection there between like housing insecurity and I know there's some type of connection there. I just can't name it just yet, but I believe in my heart I know there is something. I just can't name it yet.
Okay, no rush, but when you guys are ready, I'd be happy to entertain a motion to approve the minutes as modified.
Looks okay to me.
Yeah, looks okay to me too.
So I'm going to take that as Rona's moving to accept the minutes as modified, and Patrice is seconding them, and it will be done unanimously. Great.
Got it.
Thank you. Couple of our standing agenda items. The Somerville Fair Housing Commission has a page on Facebook, which you can find by looking up Somerville Fair Housing Commission, all one word. We generally post a question of the week on Fridays and an article or news item related to fair housing on Mondays, and sometimes other items on other days. Since our last meeting, the 2 items that got the most attention were one question about subletting. And if a person is renting and they're subletting, do fair housing laws apply to them? And the answer is yes. There's more details on the site. 79 people saw that article and 5 actually went and shared it. And the other one that got similar attention was a news article about a proposal by the administration in Washington to convert current types of federal rental assistance into block grants, which is to say, just a sum of money to be given to the state, right? And so two problems with that. One is that they want to cut the total amount, dollar amount, by about half. And then they want to leave it up to the states to figure out what to do with it, instead of, you meet these qualifications, you get the money. So again, 79 people saw that article, and 5 shared it. So let me see if anybody has any questions about either of those pieces, or any comments.
I think the only comment is that if that happens, Governor Healy has been pretty supportive of housing as a major state issue. So I think we should be able to successfully lobby her to do the right thing. But beyond that, I hear that and I'm like, ick.
I agree with Hannah. I feel the ick too with it.
And I agree with what was just said, with the caveat that the states are being asked to do a lot of stuff that the federal government is trying to shed at this point. So it becomes a budget issue, but something to keep our eyes on for sure. So thank you, everybody. I'd like to go to our able staff person, Shannon Lawler, and ask her about calls and complaints received since the last meeting.
Yeah, so we received 2 since the last meeting. One was more of a fair housing complaint, and the other one I referred over to OHS. So I'll start with that one. That one was someone who, it's a tenant, she's not renewing her lease, and she stated that the lease doesn't have an automatic renewal clause or any obligation to provide notice of vacating the unit for the lease end, but she did give the landlord over 30 days notice via email and text that she'd be moving out. And the landlord demanded rent through September 2nd, which would be 2 months after she provided the notice that she was leaving, and stated that she needed to give 60 days notice. There was a clause in the lease that if you are, cutting the lease short, you need to give 60 days notice, but not for lease end. And she also said that she was concerned about retaliation. So I referred her to OHS,
Which is
for
the
her,
Office of Housing
the Office of
Stability.
Housing Stability, for her tenants' rights with regard to the lease renewing. And I told her that if she felt like there was retaliation because of this, then she should come back to me and we can file a complaint with the Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination. And that's the first one. So that one's not
Okay.
exactly a fair housing complaint, but it is housing related. So I know why she reached out.
Right. And am I right, Shannon, that you receive a fair number of calls that are sort of on the border of, it might be a discrimination issue, it might not, people just call you?
Yeah.
And it's not a terrible thing to be the gateway to justice. That just doesn't happen to be our corner of it.
Yeah. I think the OHS was able to help her. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah. If
I mean,
everybody's
that's
okay.
Yeah, that's just sounds like a contract. The contract says this, and there's a number of lawyer type people there that can let the landlord know he can't do that.
And then the second one, so this one was more of a fair housing complaint specifically. It was someone who lives in a Somerville Housing Authority property, who's the primary caretaker for her parent. And then she was moved to a different property under the VAWA Act, so the Violence Against Women Act. She said that her father requested a reasonable accommodation to be moved to the same building that she's in. They provided a note from a medical provider, and that stated the reason that her father needs to live with her. That was denied. So the reasonable accommodation request was denied on the basis that she could drive to her father when he needs assistance. So she came to me because she said that the initial reason why they live in the same building is because of a reasonable accommodation request that was put in 10 or 11 years ago. So she wants to know why the same thing is not happening now. I wrote to Somerville Housing Authority directly. I resent her note from her medical provider and asked again, she sent me the denial letter. So I asked for clarification on the denial letter, why they were denied, especially because she was moved out of that building under VAWA. So their attorney got back to me, and then she also has a case manager with OHS, Jill. So since Jill, so she has a grievance meeting, or like a appeal, I guess, for her father has an appeal. So they're getting all her documents together and ready so that she can appeal the denial.
Any questions or comments?
Yeah,
Shannon,
well,
any updates on previous cases from other months?
Well, first, Patrice, do you have a question or comment on this one?
Oh, I just wanted to like do a clarification about, or like ask a question. So in the case you just mentioned to us, the reasonable accommodations would be for the father, correct? And she filed on his behalf.
Yeah, so it's a little bit
Okay.
complicated, and it's probably part of the reason why it was denied. So yeah, she helped him request the reasonable accommodation, and the housing authority, I guess, when making the determination, didn't have all the information about why she was moved to a different building, why it would be unsafe for her to go back to that building. But and yes, there is one update from last month's. It was, sorry, let me just pull it up. The person who came to us with a complaint because the landlord was saying that his wife couldn't move in with him, his spouse couldn't move in with him into a studio unit. I spoke with that landlord on the phone, and the landlord was pretty insistent at first and kind of throughout that he didn't want to talk about rights, which is what the tenant had told me that the landlord had said to him multiple times. He didn't want to talk about rights. He just wanted to talk about friendship. So I just repeatedly told him, like, you know, you still have to respect your tenant's rights, regardless of the situation that they're in. And he seemed to understand that by the end of the call. And then he and the tenant spoke separately, and they came to an agreement. So the tenant said he would reach out if anything else happened, but he is going to move out by his choice.
Yeah, I have a stray question, which is that, do you know offhand when the new Clarendon Hill building is gonna open?
I'm not 100% sure. I think it's opening in phases. Like, I think they're doing the lottery for part of it right now, or they're maybe not, but they're advertising it. So part of it, but it's like, I guess, as it gets finished.
Because if we were looking, if the problem for the earlier case is that there aren't two suitable sized apartments in the same building someplace,
Mhm.
there are lots of them coming online, and I just didn't know what the timeline was. 'Cause
Yeah, I think,
that building's huge.
yeah. I think for the one before, the accommodation request was just denied in, like, as a request. And they, like, their request was for him to be put on the transfer list, not for him to be immediately moved,
Mhm.
but like for it to be a priority. So,
That sounds eminently reasonable. So
yeah, we'll see. I'll try to get an update from Jill and the household in the next few weeks, but I know that Jill got their grievance meeting pushed back so that they had enough time to collect all the documentation that they needed for the request, and get an interpreter for her father.
well, thank you very much. So we had actually, it's a busy time for specific activities carried out by the commission. Our primary mission is educational, and during the good weather months in particular, there are opportunities for that to happen. One of the things that's ongoing right now is we have, as a commission, we have a consultant, the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission, MAPC. Full disclosure, that's Patrice's employer, but we're getting separate consultants from them to help us figure out how to do better networking with some of the other organizations in the city and generally get our word out better. Do we have any updates? I know Gloria, our consultant, is not able to be here at today's meeting. Do we have any information that anybody else can add about that?
Well, sometime last week I think it was Thursday. So that would have been the 17th. We met with Jordan Harris of the Connection, which is a very service-oriented Christian church organization. And he mentioned a lot of sort of barriers to getting our message to his folks. And a lot of it is the cultural distrust of government bodies. And he has trouble even getting his parishioners to go to Office of Housing Stability, even though they can structurally do things that he can't do. They don't want to go there and tell somebody that they're in need of housing help. So it's a difficult situation. And we sort of talked about the different, I don't know, the different aspects of that situation, because that part of Somerville and that population in general are in this funny position where there are landlords that are inviting people and charging rent for people to live in pretty crummy places that they shouldn't be living in. And is that sometimes it's inherently bad because they are just stealing money and giving bad housing service. And sometimes it's actually keeping people off the street, and it's a good thing for a temporary situation. And so there's a lot of need that's not being addressed because people aren't going to come forward and use the services that exist in Somerville. And that includes us as an educational body. But more importantly, it includes, people getting vouchers and such. The other thing he brought up was that the wraparound services for people who are newly housed often leaves them in another town without community and not enough help. So there's a lot of stuff going on. I don't know, Shannon, if you want to add anything from the summary of that, because Gloria took the notes, so I don't have them.
I think you covered pretty much everything, the highlights of what we talked about.
Yes.
Commissioner Patrice, any thoughts or questions?
I was thinking about how do we untangle this, because I feel like there's probably going to be a couple steps that have to be taken before they're able to actually take advantage of the services we offer. And we have to think about what those steps are, or how to untangle it delicately without causing a disparate impact. That's what I worry about, because you brought up great points, Rona, about how if there is better housing that could be offered through government assistance, it could be in another town, away from their community, because it's based on what's available. Or also the impact could be of we call out a landlord and something is brought to the attention of unsuitable housing for people, and then there's no housing left. Where do they go? I feel like there are some steps that could be taken to not necessarily solve the problem, but just untangle it. Like maybe, and it'd probably take a lot of effort to do it. And I'm in on how to figure out how to do that. And I don't know if we need to bring in other folks to kind of help us do that, or we help consult with other people, other agencies on like how to do that. But I feel like there is kind of a way to untangle it, and it may be like piece by piece. It may be something that takes generations down the line to like change, but like I feel like it can be solved, but I feel like it'll be solved piece by piece and like inch by inch. Like I don't think it's an easy solution. And I think a lot of problems when it comes to like fair housing in communities that have been um, negatively impacted, or I would say marginalized, or even disinvested in, like it's going to take a lot more work to see like just a little bit of change. But I think it's worth trying. I don't know how to try, but I think we can.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be chipping away at the stone, and we have no idea when we're actually gonna get to the angel in the rock.
So question, how much of this community is an immigrant community, and how much of the fear of accessing government services has to do either with undocumented status or with being in the process of applying for citizenship and being afraid that using government services will count against them?
He didn't say directly, but my sense is that at least a significant chunk of these folks are either undocumented or in the middle of getting documented, or feeling like it doesn't matter whether they're documented. If they're brown, they might be rounded up. You know, I just got the sense of everybody's on edge.
So not wanting to call attention to themselves.
Yeah. And, and some of it is, he told a story about a fellow who was sleeping in a hallway. Paying rent for a hallway where he could leave his stuff during the day and crash at night. And he got an apartment in Malden with a Section 8 voucher, but no transportation for bringing his stuff up there. And when he got there, there was a mattress on the floor and a refrigerator and nothing else. And Jordan, on his own dime, put people in his car and move what this guy had as worldly possessions up to Malden. And he's seen this over and over again. And then they're up in Malden, they don't know anybody. They don't know the transportation system. They don't, and they end up coming back to Somerville because that's where their community is. And then it's a pain in the butt to get back to Malden at night. And then they don't use the apartment, and then they lose their voucher because they're not using it, and they have to start all over again. And that was sort of a cycle that he's seen over and over again, where there's no orientation to the community, from being unhoused to being housed someplace else without pots and pans and sponges and dishes and towels and all that.
Did that person even have a stove?
Yeah.
They did. Okay.
Yeah. So he had basically an empty kitchen.
Mhm.
But if you have a stove, it doesn't matter if you don't have a pot.
So Shannon, I have a follow-up question. So are there like a list of resources or services that Somerville has that can like kind of help residents who have been rehoused somewhere else, have gone through like the voucher program, and they need some help? Because back when I used to like volunteer for the for a homeless shelter, like we'd be so happy when people would get housing, and we'd make sure that we would connect them with services that would provide them like bedding if they needed it, or like household appliances, and not just like leave them alone. I wonder if there's also like a case manager too, that is also supposed to be helping connect these services also. And somehow everyone is so overworked that like things fall through the cracks.
Yeah, and that's what I get the impression is that particularly when you're dealing with second languages and you're dealing with people who might be still using, that these are the folks that are falling through the cracks. And that's a lot of who Jordan Harris sees. When he sees, when he sees people falling through the cracks, that's sort of the profile. And it's a very busy system doing a lot of good for a lot of people, but there's definitely people falling through the cracks.
Yeah,
And,
I think that part of his point was that there's just not enough wraparound services. So like
Yeah.
you could get housing or you could get assistance applying for, SNAP or something like that, but like it's hard to get it all, especially for like really vulnerable people. I mean, yeah, Somerville Homeless Coalition, the Office of Housing Stability, like there are case managers and there are wraparound services, but their capacity is limited. So I don't know. I guess that's like, yeah, like Rona said, those are the people that he's seeing are like the people who just slip through.
yeah,
But
there's a hole in the system regarding this, because when we were in Ohio a couple of years ago, we were emptying out Dennis's brother's apartment, and all his stuff went to this veterans group, and the veterans group ran like a free store in a barn, so that when people got housed, they could come in with a shopping cart and get dish drainers and dishes and pots and all that kind of stuff. And then the stuff that was saleable was going to some kind of thrift shop or flea market kind of thing. And we don't have the space to run a free shop like that, but we really need something like that.
I think
Where,
also the Mamas group, Mutual Aid Medford and
yeah,
Somerville, they do something like
they
similar
do
to
a
that.
lot of that. Yeah. And a lot of times the free things, because the connection does free things also. It's usually clothes and not so much housing goods. And by the way, the connection, for anyone listening to this later, the connection needs men's clothing. They get a lot of donations of women's clothing because women cycle through clothing faster than men do, but they need men's clothing. Commercial over.
So, and I just want to mention that connection is spelled with an X, CONNEXION. And I'm going to drop a link to them in the chat. That I can do that, right? That's part of the public record. Yeah, so let's see. Although it says to hosts and panelists.
So it might not be to everybody.
Yeah, well, I will put it here. And Shannon, if you can figure out how to make it public, that's great. And if not, it will be in the minutes of the meeting. So thank Reverend Jordan Harris. With everybody's permission, I'll move on to the next item, which is the Fair Housing Questionnaire for candidates. And I'll just give a quick background on this and ask Patrice if she wants to say something about it. The background is that Somerville has municipal elections in the odd numbers years, and both in 2001 and 2003, the commission, with Patrice and me serving as the subcommittee, put together a questionnaire about fair housing issues and sent them to candidates for mayor and for city council. The purpose of this was twofold. One was to just get the issues front and center for the candidates. And the other purpose was to give the voters a chance to see what the candidates had to say about this and factor that into their voting decision. And obviously, but I will say it anyway, we're a nonpartisan commission and we don't endorse candidates. We just put the information out through the city's website and through local media. Patrice, what do you want to say about this year's questionnaire?
So this year's questionnaire is a little bit more updated. Well, so Jen and I worked together and we updated We got rid of one of the more wordy questions, and we added two. We tried to keep the questionnaire short. And the questionnaire, oh my goodness. So the questionnaire, the new questions are in regard to federal, the federal administration and HUD and its effect on fair housing. And another question, I believe, Dennis, was about what does Somerville do to support small landlords? I think that was it. The two questions we decided to add in this year. And Dennis has been doing a lion's share of the work with sending out the questionnaire to all the candidates. There are, I believe, 26 candidates, right? Right, Dennis? And Dennis has been
Right,
sending
for
emails
mayor and for city council.
for mayor and city council at large. A
There
lot of
are-
folks are running.
There are 12 people simply running for city council at large for 4 positions.
So we are hoping to have these questions, like these questionnaires, sent back to us so they can be made available to the public to like view before the next election. So if people have time to like look at the questionnaire and kind of like think about like what their candidates feel about their housing, what they know about their housing, and that way the community has knowledge. And again, Dennis, thank you so much, because I see I'm CC'd on the emails you send out, and I see them sent out every day, and I just want to say thank you for that. And a little bit of subcommittee cleanup, like I will be sure to do the follow-up. And actually, Dennis, when do you think is a reasonable time for us to have the follow-up? For me to like reach out if we haven't heard from a candidate while we're together, while we have this time.
Well, everybody, we gave them till a week from, no, I guess it's 2 weeks from Monday. We gave them to August 14th as the deadline for submitting. And at least one person has already submitted and one sent kind of preliminary responses, but most people and a few people have said thank you for the opportunity and we will meet the deadline. Patrice, what I would say is maybe the Friday before that, send them a reminder.
Okay.
And then, you know, August 14th is actually this commission's next meeting. If anybody that hasn't gotten it to us by then, we'll do a, hey, absolutely last chance kind of message. You know, but we, as Patrice said, we do want to make sure that it has plenty of time to get posted to the city's website and shared with local media. The preliminary election is September 16th. So, you know, we want everybody to, and my guess is, you know, from previous experiences that not that many people will be paying attention in August. So what we really have is, you know, that tight window between Labor Day and the 16th is when probably most voters will be paying most attention.
And this brings us, oh, sorry, Rona, I've already spoken.
Yeah. Well, the only question I have is with 26 answers, that's a lot of newsprint. Are the local papers behind us to get these out?
Very likely, they'll do minimal amount of it in print and most of it online.
Okay. So the print edition will have, I mean, can we curate and have sort of a best quote or something? Or would that be too hard?
I think that would be too open us too much to the idea that we'd be favoring one candidate.
Okay.
But you know, if an editor says we'll run the actual answers for the mayoral candidates and the rest will be on the website, or you know, that's up to them. we also, Patrice and I have been batting around some other ideas about other ways that we can get it out there. But, you know, we're starting with what we control as a city, which is the city
Mhm.
website. And Shannon,
Mhm.
you'll have to put us in touch with the right person to get this stuff posted. And then, you know, some of the local media, I'll mention the Somerville Times in particular, have cooperated with us in the past. And so those are the low hanging fruit. And then we'll see what we can do from there.
I also wonder if we could have like a QR code that we can just put anywhere in the city that can be scanned and like give the answers to the questionnaire, right? We just have like fair housing candidate questionnaire, and we just have like a large QR code, and we just have it like everywhere so people can like put it on their phones and like access the website from their phone.
So Patrice, can you and Shannon investigate that?
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah,
that would be
Patricia, I
so
think that's a
cool.
great idea.
Yeah, we can stick it up on bulletin boards all over Davis and
Oh,
Union,
everywhere.
wherever
Like,
there's a coffee shop.
yeah, coffee shop, barber shops, like anywhere where there's like where a lot of businesses will have like little flyers in their like windows or whatnot. So like we can ask them, and it's such a low hanging fruit because there's no
Yeah.
real wording on there, and people can just like go by when they're walking by and just like take like
Snap it.
a snap it, right?
Yeah, and we can definitely put them at all the libraries and city buildings and stuff too.
Great. Anything else about the questionnaire for now?
Mhm.
Okay, I'm gonna skip over one and come back to it, but I think the logical connection would be to the online education and outreach, because I think that what we were just talking about relates to that. But we also know that Commissioner Kay Memo, who is not here today, is helping to create an Instagram for the Fair Housing Commission. And I just want to remind other commissioners, I was dilatory about this myself, but if you have not sent your bio and your photo, please send it to Shannon. She'll make sure that it's shared with Kay. And, you know, we'll hope to get those things and possibly the questionnaire and other information up there this fall. Anybody else want with thoughts about online education?
I think everyone has sent their bios. I'm pretty sure. So that is great. And sorry that I didn't remind everyone before this week.
Actually, I did not, Shannon. I confess. But you should have an old one. There's like an old one hanging out there. That should be fine. And like maybe
yeah.
I'll send in my headshot, even though it doesn't look like me anymore. I don't have an updated headshot.
Yeah, I can send your like from your video, the beginning of it is your bio. I'll send her that.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Yeah, and I'm planning to redo my video and didn't get to it this month. It's still on my to-do list. I just physically just looked. It's really there.
Because Commissioner Rona used to be an active real estate broker
Right.
in the city, and now she's a retired real estate
Right.
broker.
So I am no longer held to the code of the National Association of Real Estate Agents, so I can actually say things I couldn't say before. Watch out.
I love it.
Free at last, free at last. Yes. Okay. So with your permission, then I'll go back to the item on tabling events. And I was not able to be at Artbeat, but I think everybody else in the room was able to be. So what can you tell me about it?
Why don't you start, Patrice? Because I've done it a million times.
So it was my first time tabling for Artbeat and my second time tabling ever. And again, it was a great experience. I felt that we were able to actually meet the community where they were. Not every necessarily question we got was a fair housing question. There were some that were very deeply involved, and we're like, oh, that is definitely a fair housing issue, especially when it comes to like service, like animals. And also a lot of people just needed help, like trying to navigate like what 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 their tenants' rights are, period. So I tabled with Lisa, and then I tabled with a team of Lisa, Rona, and me. So, and then Shannon came by, so it was like a party. So
Yeah.
we were able to meet the community. We were able to actually like have our faces out there. Oh, and we also did like Lisa and I did like a quick interview for like Somerville TV, and we may have an opportunity to be on what is it, a Summer Viva show to talk about fair housing. I can't remember how to get that going, but so there's some opportunities there. But actually, I really loved tabling. I loved having the conversations with people and learning who was in my community and like how we can help them and just getting the word out that we're here. Everything we do builds the trust. And I'll hand it back to like Rona and Jen to answer.
Yeah, what I would add is that we've got a triptych board, you know, one of those, they're, you know, I don't know what that is, maybe 3 feet high, and it opens up. And we've been playing with it through the various events and moving things around. And the stuff in the middle that we've got now with the protected classes has really become easy to use as a visual. You know, that this is the federal one. It's for everybody in the country. This is for Massachusetts, and some of it's redundant to that, and some of it clarifies that, and some of it is in addition to that. And then here's our Somerville one that clarifies 2 of the things that are in Massachusetts. And that just became really easy to talk about. And one person came up to me and said, "What is that Somerville one about?" And, you know, and I was able to explain why that was there and why it was clarifying the family status, marital status question for people in Somerville. So
this
that was
is the more recent one about
the
family.
one about polyamory. Yeah. Right.
Mhm.
And it's considered, I think the language of it is family status or something like that. That any adults that want to call themselves family have the right to call themselves family is the cultural thing that ordinance is trying to bring across for everybody. So so just explaining that, because it's not clear. I mean, it's all sort of quasi legal language, and therefore it's got to be explained. And sort of I've also come to the point where just reminding people that when people are talking about housing, like we have that we have a piece of paper that's on a plastic where people point out the fair housing violations on it. I get to remind them of something I learned as a realtor, which is that if they're talking about the people in the house, your antenna should be up. If they're talking about the house, then they're doing the right thing. So when they're saying the house is, you know, this many bedrooms and this and that, as soon as they say suitable for a large family, no. Singles only, no. Things like that. So as soon as they start talking about people, so I kept saying to people as they were coming by, it's about the ad should be about the house, not the people. And because frequently they're not finding, you know, they weren't finding the young professionals one, which was the hard one to find. So yeah, so I think our materials are getting better and better each time. That's the summary. We're gonna run out of time, so I'll shut up.
Shannon, please.
I would add that, yeah, I think it was really good. Most of the people who came up seemed like they had never heard of the Fair Housing Commission before and didn't know what fair housing was in general, which I think was really good. It was an opportunity, like Patrice said, to meet people where they're at, you know, rather than having them try to come to our events, which has its own value. But this is like an easy way, I think, to get into the community. There were a lot of people who came by the table, and I wish that we had kept record, but there was not really time because it was just constant, especially for the first, I would say, well, I wasn't there for the first 2 hours, but I was there for the last 4. And the first 2 of those were very, very busy. And then it sort of petered off in the last hour. I will say if it goes for 7 hours again, we left at 6 rather than at 7. And I think that that is probably the thing to do, leave at 5:30 or 6, because we were getting way less people coming by. And yeah, just one other example is someone came by and was looking at the protected classes and was like, oh, wow, because I'm a veteran and I'm disabled, those are protected classes. And so he was like really interested to learn that. And like, yeah, I thought that was great.
Yeah, and with the keeping track of people, last year we just had a piece of paper on the desk. Every time somebody came by, we hashtagged and then we added them up. So we just have to remember to do that when we're tabling. Because
Yeah,
it's really sort of a thrill. It was like we had the numbers last year. It was like 98 people engaged and this many people said hello and left and whatever.
Yeah, and I think it was more this year, to be honest.
I think it was more this year. I was at both, so.
Excuse me, are there any other tabling events coming up in the near future?
A good question. I think that a lot of the outdoor events kind of peter off as it gets colder. There's one, I think, around Halloween that we could maybe look into.
Yeah, I assume that fluff is not for us.
Probably not.
You know,
But I think someone suggested last month or the month before, I forget who, so sorry. But tabling at a Pride event in June could be a really good idea for next June. Since we would be, you know, getting protected class there. So I think that that's just something to keep in mind for future years of tabling. And I think that Carnival was really good and Art Beat is definitely really, both of those are really busy.
And we also did Civic Day, if I remember.
We did Civic Day too, right? Civic Day was not as busy. I think we talked to fewer people in the amount of time.
Oh, and the other thing is we had the other activity of choose, is this legal or is this allowed? Is it not allowed? And a lot of people were getting tripped up by those questions, which I think is a good thing because it was an opportunity for them to learn, like, what are the like kind of nitty gritty, you know, on the edge things that actually aren't allowed that you might not think are not allowed.
Well, we could make a third category of allowed, not allowed, slimy landlord things. but I don't, you know, we're speaking for the city, so we'll have to decide if that's okay.
So is that related? We have an item under this section called adding protected classes to the Fair Housing Ordinance. Is that just related to what we already discussed, the polyamory?
No, I want to bring something up. So this is kind of combined in with the Fair Housing and Civil Rights Conference, which Lisa and I went to in May.
Great.
But there was someone from an organization called, what's it called? I think it was called Justice for Housing who spoke, who said that in Boston, they're trying to add criminal background. Well, she was formerly incarcerated, and she said they're trying to add criminal background as a protected class in Boston. And Lisa and I both thought that that could be a really good idea. I know we did talk about it briefly in our meeting at Connection. But I do think that there are quite a few landlords who do a query check. And I think it might be worthwhile to explore the idea of adding criminal background in some way to our protected classes, or Another option is there's an ordinance that some other cities have called a fair chance ordinance. I could be wrong, but I think a lot of times that's geared towards employment, and, you know, not looking at criminal background and employment, but it can also be for housing. So I just wanted to bring the idea up. I have some materials that Lisa sent me, which I will add to the published materials, so they'll be public record. And also I will send them to you guys directly. There's guidance from HUD from 2016 and 2022 regarding housing disparities and like disparate impact with using criminal background to screen out applicants. So they have some recommendations there that we could look at if we did want to explore adding this as a protected class to the Fair Housing Ordinance, creating a new ordinance, or what we want to, if anything we want to do there. But I do think it's worth thinking about, because there are definitely landlords that use criminal background as a proxy, I think, for other things.
So if it becomes an ordinance like the polyamory ordinance, it's not functionally enforceable, but it's a statement, and it also feeds the state effort to add it to the state. Is that?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay.
I would also say that it could, maybe if we have two of our own protected classes, sort of push us in the direction of having our own ability to enforce. Probably not in the near future, but you know, I think that could kind of help our reasoning behind why we might want to look into enforcing fair housing law in the city rather than going just to MCAD for everything.
Yeah, I'm trying to think it through, and if the ordinance exists and it's on the books, it also gives us the opportunity to teach landlords that doing a Corey check might get them in trouble, so just stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the move away from credit checks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'll send the materials that Lisa sent me, just so that you guys, if you want to do some reading, hopefully it's not a lot of pages, but just to start thinking about for next meeting or the meeting after, if we want to look into how we can add that.
Yeah, my
Thank
sense is we would need to create some kind of presentation to the city council and see if we can get a city councilor to sponsor an ordinance. And that wouldn't happen until January, so we've got some time to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think this, and first off, I wanted to say thank you to Shannon for being forward looking like this, and you know, pass this along to Lisa. Also, we appreciate your bringing this up here. And I want to say that I do think it's going to take a fair amount of thinking and consensus building. Certainly, I can imagine a lot of landlords saying, "What, you want me to get, you know, some hardened criminal applying for my apartment," and you know, that kind of thing. I'm reminded of Brian Stevenson, who wrote the book. I think it's called Just Mercy.
Just Mercy, yeah.
You know, and one of the things that he said that's often quoted is that people should not be judged by the worst thing that they ever did in their lives. They should be judged all around, you know, for who they are and who they are now. But this is going to be a little harder sell, I think, than say reasonable accommodation for disabled people. All right. Well, thank you so much. Shannon, can you tell us about the FY24 annual report?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry to interrupt y'all, but I have to go. My break, my lunch break is just about done. I have maybe 2 more minutes before I'm being called back to the office.
Okay.
So just wanted to let y'all know.
Thank you. And Patrice, since you mentioned that, I just want to call your attention and those of the other commissioners to the fact that our next meeting is not a month from now, but 3 weeks from now, August 14th. So please make sure everybody has it on their calendars. Shannon, real briefly about the annual report.
I sent it out to everyone. I can resend it again after this meeting. If everyone wants to look over the draft report, Lisa reviewed it as of last month. So give me any feedback, any changes you want me to make, and then I can submit it after it's approved to City Council. It'll probably go back through the committee. I forget the name again, but that should be ready for you guys to look at. And then one other thing, Patrice, before you go, did you guys all get the email about appreciation night on the 11th
Yes.
of
Yes.
August? Okay. Patrice, did
Patrice,
you?
did
I'm
you see
I can
that?
forward.
confused. Thank you. I
I'll
saw
forward
the
it.
confused look on my face. Thank you. I don't hide my feelings well.
I'll forward it along to everyone. But yeah, just so that you're aware that that's happening. And that's all I have.
They're throwing us a party.
Okay, cool. I love it. Okay. All right, y'all. I gotta go.
Bye.
Gotta go back to work. Thanks for
I
coming.
do. All right, bye,
Can we
y'all.
move to adjourn?
Yeah, Patrice,
can
would you move to
Yeah.
adjourn?
Yes,
you
a motion to
second?
adjourn.
Okay, I'll second.
And I make it unanimous. The meeting is officially adjourned at 4:04 p.m.
Okay.